Hey guys, Fred Schebesta. People know me because I founded a business with no funding. It's now worth $300 million, but we're not talking about that. We're going to talk about the number one reason, the number one thing that's stopping you from starting your business idea. We're going to go downstairs to the basement and talk about it. We're going to talk a little bit about fear. We're going to talk about anxiety. We're going to talk about doubt. We're going to talk about things about that, like how you're feeling. Let's head on down. You know, a lot of people tell me about their business idea, and I'm always baffled by that. I'm wondering, like, why have you not started that? And I thought about it, and I've realized that it really comes down to fear. Fear in yourself about being successful, fear of failure, fear of being different to everyone else. Sometimes, you know, you worry potentially your lifestyle that you've built for yourself, you might go backwards. You know, what about your children? All these kinds of things. Those kinds of fears are stopping you. And I'm going to tell you about my story and how I overcame that and what I did. I'm going to tell you about a time when I was in a dark place and I lost my confidence. It was a tough time, a really tough time. One of the darkest times of my life. And the thing about it is, when I was at university, I wasn't like enjoying myself. I wasn't the greatest student. I found it really, really hard. And while I was there, I started exploring and building websites, getting curious about the internet. And I was like, just enjoying this. I was like finding these things. I was unpacking websites, and I just found myself in flow. And it was just something that kept me going. I kept on going to university, and I was in this really, unconfident, really, I'd say one of the lowest times of my life. And I felt really dark and unconfident about my life. And it was because the path I'd chosen, the traditional path of going to university and getting a job, it just didn't feel right to me. I just wasn't like everyone else. It didn't feel natural. I didn't feel good about it. I was out of flow, and I was just unconfident about the entire thing. And at the same time, I was building these websites. I was just hacking them. I was building little small websites. This is like before hashtags. This is before WordPress, way back in the day when we used to roll our own websites. And that was the one thing that kept me going. It filled me with joy. And when I was doing this, I was building these sites, and I was growing my knowledge. I was building up my ideas. I was learning and mastering the web, understanding it, learning about it, becoming a web developer, really. That was my place that I was enjoying. And from that place, instead of like that fear and anxiety and doubt about my future with, I was studying actuarial studies and computer science, and that was like a really tough thing. I actually stopped that eventually. I actually stopped doing it. And that was a really hard decision. That was, again, one of the hardest decisions I've ever had to make. And that was the moment in time where I thought, well, what am I going to do? And I started exploring courses and ideas that I love to go and do. And from that's the place that I started to develop my confidence, started to develop my mastery, started to develop what I loved to do. And, one of these things that I'm going to tell you about is the 3 ways you can start to build your confidence. All right, let's get this board and we'll go upstairs. So I'm going to tell you about the 3 things that will help you rebuild your confidence. So will get you fired back up, and get you back on top, get you like firing out your ideas, firing like you're in flow, baby. Let's talk about them. Let's talk about those things that might be going to get you rebooted. So the first thing we're going to talk about is we're going to try and short circuit all those fears, those anxieties, and those doubts, those things that are holding you back, all those fantasial ideas that you're thinking about, all the worst things that could possibly happen. We're going to acknowledge them. Write them down. What's the actual worst thing that could happen? And once you start to write that down, once you start to feel those feelings and look at them and acknowledge those feelings that are there, and now that's the worst thing that could happen. Now, what could potentially be the best thing that could happen starts to feel pretty good, and also feels a bit more realistic as well. So when I was starting my business, I thought about what was the worst thing that could happen. So I was building this website and I was thinking about it and I was like, well, what could happen? Well, I build it and, no one would come. And I only, it wasn't a massive website. It was just, and if you look at it, it wasn't exactly the most pretty website, but it had a great idea in it. The worst thing that happened was, I wasted some time, it didn't work. The domain name would expire. I just bought some hosting. Hey, not that big a downside. Maybe I got a little embarrassed. Sure, I get it. But realistically, all those feelings I had and all of the anxieties around it, I wasn't feeling so bad about it anymore. So number 2, what we're going to talk about is really addressing that fear of failure now. How are you going to get past that? All the ideas and ways you figured out how the idea is not going to work. That feeling of failure will dissipate because rationally you feel you can do that. The difference between baking a whole 5-course meal versus, making a bit of toast, that's really what you're talking about. A small way to test it, a small version of what you want to build, a small website, a smaller book, maybe like a tiny PDF, a blog post, maybe a post on LinkedIn, maybe it's just a short recording on Instagram to talk about your idea and see what people think and see what they want to do. So how did I start? How did I make my ideas smaller? Well, when I started, we only made one web page. We just put a page up. Then we made 2. It was just a 5-page little website that had 1 or 2 credit cards on it. It was a credit card comparison website, and it was very small. And we just wanted to see what it looked like. We wanted to see if it would get any traffic at all. We wanted to see if anyone would come. And people came and they clicked on it, and we kept on building it a little bit bigger. And it was just, all I was doing was writing content and putting up web pages and actually reviewing credit cards at the first. And that was kind of nice, right? But it was a small little website. It wasn't a massive investment, and that allowed me to test the idea. So talking about building, how about these guys building up it's all happening right now. That probably started pretty small as well. So the third thing is one of the other issues that you might feel right now is the doubt. Will this work? Will this idea that you have work? How do you get confidence in that? The best thing I suggest to do here is to build from something you've mastered. So what do I mean by that? It's you've spent 5 years doing, accounting, or 5 years coding websites. And within doing that, what you've done is, and you may not realize this, but you've actually learned about that industry. You've got expertise. You're an expert in that. No one else, or very few people, know the depth of knowledge and depth of information that you have about that. And so in order to get confidence, my suggestion is to build from that mastery. Build from that area that you understand better than anyone else. So if you understand, how to lend people money because you've been working in the back office of making lending decisions, cool. Maybe build a business near that. Build a business that's around that. Look for those ideas. I built a website because before that, my actual first business and the thing I was doing at university, I was building websites for other people. So I knew how to build it, how to market it, how to grow it. I already knew how to do that. But the actual core then, I thought, to build my business was to go and then build from that. So build a website, market it, and do that on the internet because I've already done it before. So I felt confident. So those are the 3 ways to get more confident. Number 1, acknowledge the downside, what could potentially go wrong. Number 2, start small. Make your idea a little smaller, more digestible, you feel a bit better about it. And number 3, build from your mastery. Build from a place you already know. You're already confident about it, and build from there. So those are my 3 ways to get more confident about your idea. I just want you to know I'm putting together a course. It's called How to Get Confident and Build Your Business Idea. It's a little course I'm putting together. I hope you've enjoyed this video, and thanks so much for watching.